What's your funniest sorry wrong number story? One time someone called me and this is how the conversation went. I answer the phone. Hello. Hey. You won't believe what happened. What happened? Joe didn't show up. So at this point I realize the guy still doesn't realize he called the wrong number. So I decide to play along. You're joking, right? He didn't show up. No, he didn't. What should we do? You know what? I have no idea. What do you suggest? Should we shut it down? Yeah man, just shut it down. Alright, I'm going to shut it down. And then I hung up. To this day I have no idea who the hell that was or what they were shutting down. A bunch of years back I got a call from across the country. This is how I remember the conversation going. Lady, hi, please bring the moving truck over today. Me, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. Lady, I don't think you understand. I want to have the moving truck here today. Me, I really think you have the wrong number. Lady, will you just listen to me and bring the truck over here as soon as possible? Me, I'm a high school kid from California. You have the wrong number. Lady, audibly irritated. Listen you idiot, I need the damn truck today, so you need to get it over here now. I don't know how else to explain this to you. Me, alright, I will be there with the truck very soon, ma'am. I hung up and never heard from her again. I like to think she is still waiting for the moving truck to this very day. Not me, but my dad. Setting the Warburg machine to the early 80s, Dad worked for the USGS on Mount St. Helens. One day, after a long shift surveying up on the mountain and licking rocks, he and his fellow scientists had come back to the office and decided to order a pizza. They opened a phone book, remember those, and called a local pizza joint. However, they were on the federal phone system and forgot to dial 9 for an outside line. Instead of pizza, they got a very official sounding voice for one of the various 3-letter agencies that are hard to keep track of. After a very confusing conversation for both my dad and the guy on the other end, along with some very accusatory questions from the faceless voice on the other end of the line, Dad hung up and dialed again, this time dialing 9 first. They got the pizza place. Okay, wrong number. Order pizza. Hungry geologists will not be stopped. A couple days later, however, a couple government agent types stopped by the office to ask about an irregularity regarding the phone system. Again, confusion by everyone there, until Dad remembered calling for pizza and talking to someone who very much wasn't a pimply faced youth taking orders. So Dad again hauled out the phone book and showed the agents the super secret. Knowing about it means we have to kill you phone number rather prominently displayed in black on yellow. The agents quickly realized this wasn't a case of communists/anarchists trying to destabilize the federal government, but a bunch of beardy, flannel-wearing, hungry scientists just trying to get their grub on. The agents laughed, apologized for intruding, and went on their way. TL, doctor, delivered hot and fresh in 30 minutes, or you become the subject of a federal investigation. When I lived at home, my mum's house number was very similar to a local doctor's. The only phone calls we'd ever received to that line was people trying to book appointments all day. Sometimes it was very annoying. My mum would just say sorry this is the wrong number, and most would be apologetic, and you wouldn't hear from them again. Sometimes people would ring again, and my mum would say sorry it's still me, not the doctors. But other times, people would be super aggressive and rude, and just not understand that we're not the doctors, and we'd get comments such as, "Why is it so hard to get an appointment here?" I rang 3 times this morning and no one answered. This is just unacceptable. Just get me an appointment. Your customer service skills are terrible. So one day my mom just said fuck it and said yeah we can see you today. Come down at 4 p.m. and see Dr. John Doe. Thanks bye. And from then on, rude people or persistent offenders would get booked in on non-existent appointments with increasingly ludicrous fictional doctors. We had Dr. Zhivago, Dr. Martens, Dr. Stein, first name Franken, and then laugh as we imagined them arriving at the doctor's with no appointment. This is more of a sorry wrong cabin story. My family and I were at a lodge. I was going on a walk with my mom, and for some reason I turned back, probably forgot something. I wasn't paying much attention when I walked up the steps and opened the door. I was faced with an almost pitch black room. A man was lying on the couch. He asked why I was there. I shut the door and went to the right cabin. Luckily no one else saw, and it was a last day there. Got a phone call from a company I'd been doing a few interviews for. I answered back quote, "Hi, this is Maximum. Don't mind putting my name in this post, it's in my username." They essentially offered me the job over the phone, and I was absolutely ecstatic. I thanked them, and then they followed up with, "Well, look forward to working with you, Matt." I replied, "Sorry, my name is Maximum." Back quote, "Oh, my apologies, we were actually meant to call up a different candidate," and hung up. An hour later I got my rejection email. A buddy in our group text kinda fell off the earth and changed his number. One day after this conversation, "Hey, can someone get some meat on the way over? Gonna grill." "Yeah, I'll beat that meat if you bring it." "You wanna pound my meat?" "I'm gonna pound you raw with my meat." It gets progressively worse. We get a text from the old number and found it out it belonged to a nice older lady that's been trying to ignore the group text up until now. Felt kinda bad since there was a lot of nasty dankness exchanged before that. It's just so cringe. It's not that funny, but I once had a 10-minute conversation with a wrong number. She woke me up, and I assumed she was my girlfriend at the time. Landline, no caller ID. I honestly had no idea it wasn't her until we'd been confusing each other for a few minutes. Like, she asked what I had been up to that day, and I said I was hanging out with Matt and Tony. She asked who they were, and I was like, "Wait, you met them, don't you remember?" Little things like that just kept not adding up. Eventually I was just like, "Wait, is this Becky?" And she was like, "No, is this John? We're married now." Just kidding. So I'm sitting at my desk one day, probably staring at a SolidWorks is not responding box waiting for it to actually do something. Phone rings. I look at the number. Me under my breath. There's no way that's right. Answer. Me, Steve E.T. here. Them, wait, what company did you say? Me. Them, oh, we were trying to reach the Chevy dealership. Sorry. Me, that's okay. Have a nice day. Them, have a nice day too. Hangs up. I then tell my coworkers they will never guess who just called. It was the donut place in the area that everyone goes fucking nuts over. Which reminds me, damn, it's been a while since I've had their donuts. When I was 16 I was woken up at 1 in the morning to some drunk guy calling me, "Hey Peter." "Peter? Where the fuck are you, bro?" "Me, I'm not Peter. I'm a girl." "I think you got the wrong number." Drunk guy, "WTF. Sorry about that. Do you wanna catch a beer?" "Me, I'm sorry but no. It's late and I have to go to school tomorrow." Drunk guy, "You're boring. You don't have to tell anyone. I can come pick you up. I'm bored out of my fucking mind." "Me, I'm sorry but I can't. Maybe you should call one of your friends and hang out with them instead." Drunk guy, "That's a fantastic idea. A good night and sorry for the disturbance." A month later I got called up again in the middle of the night by a drunk guy, not the same guy BTW, who was looking for Peter. He was faster to apologize and hang up though. I always think of this little story with a smile on my face. It doesn't translate too well to English and to text, but the first drunk guy was really not as creepy as he kinda sounds in my paraphrased recount. He was just so confused and bored, and really wanted to hang out with Peter. Instead he got me for a few minutes. His tone wasn't remotely flirty. He just really sounded like he wanted to hang out with somebody, because being drunk and alone is boring. I guess Peter has a lot of drunk guy friends who get lost on weekdays and go looking for him. So a solid 12 or so years ago, I got a wrong number call every Sunday morning for like 3 or 4 months. They were always between 5 AM and 10 AM, excepting one call that was like 2:30 AM or something, so they usually woke me up. It was always a different person, always female, and always wanting to talk to a guy called Roland. Was suspicious after the second time, but every subsequent caller hammered home that some guy was delving and dashing, and the fake number he was leaving just so happened to be mine. Most of the ladies who called were pretty good about it. They usually went along the lines of, "Oh, sorry to bother you, have a good one," and end it there. To cases where that didn't happen, where a woman who went, "That piece of shit. Should have known. He sucked anyway. Sorry for the wake up call, buddy. I'm going back to the bar and I'll stomp his teeny nuts in for making me wake you." Whoever that woman was, she was too awesome for that guy. The other instance was a woman who just refused to believe that Roland would lie to her. She laughed it off dismissively and told me to put him on. After a few minutes of me repeatedly telling her she had the wrong number and her getting angrier and more rude, and it being not even 8 am, I snapped that I was starting to understand why somebody would use her and then vanish without a word. Hung up on her, turned my phone off, and went back to bed. Good news was that I'd made my point, if the barrage of furious text messages waiting for me was any indication. And that, my friends, is the story of how one day I'm going to be arrested for shaking a man's hand and then stomping his teeny nuts in.